was he slipped the rifle from his shoulder.
And was about to raise him.
Yes.
To aim at him.
And and from this moment, they were going at the same pace and carefully watching to each other. So.
Yes, so we know that this boy comes to this place. We are not presented his age, and we don't know how old he is. But he comes to this place. He seems very confident and very determined in what he wants to find. He knows that he has to go to the house, and there he will probably get to know his mother. And that's what happens. He comes to the house, and there is a woman called, by the way, they're all Indians, and the story is about Indians in general. So he comes to this place, and there is a woman called Anacleta, and she welcomes him. They eat together, and it's a very welcoming atmosphere in general. And she's an Indian too, and he assumes that this is his mother.
Yes, he assumed this because she directly says him, "It's son, you've been traveling 16 years finding your way home." And he was confused if she's saying this because she's old woman or because she's his mother. Then they had a talk Anaketa, do you know my father? And she says, if only I had never known him. And she's describing that Aquadal was not good with him. She started to tell not the really good things about his father, as his father was mentioned in the beginning.
Right.
And also we are introduced now to Amranta. This is a daughter.
And she also mentions that the day when he came to India was a bad day for all of us, and the day he left was also a bad day for all of us.
Yes.
And she doesn't say straightforwardly what she means, she just gives these hints.
But overall, her discussion is bad.
In a bad
way, yes. Also, next Amaranta is the daughter of Anacleta, and the narrator immediately mentions their similarity in their eyes. And when he mentioned this, she said no. She says that everybody in this town has alike faces. So
yes, and just because this woman doesn't tell him directly that I'm not your mother, he decides to confront her by trying to kiss her daughter. So he tries to kiss her daughter, and when that woman comes and says, "You cannot do it," he says, "Why? Because she's my sister."
Yes. Also, he saw a portrait of a young man, and this was Faustina Higueras, who was died. According to this mother's words, this was her brother. So he goes and she says him to go to Dona Jasmina. And say that he is Nacho Zamora and he came to find his mother. Interesting shift of the plot, actually.
And I think it's very connected to how we read the story. Every time we try to find something there, they just try to redirect us to another book, to another story, and the same thing happens to him. And I thought that this will be the end. He will never find it.
I also thought so, but we find out next scene where Dona Jasmina eats together with them, and we are again introduced to Jacinita, her daughter, and they had a talk where our character discovered that Don Anastacio Zamora was winning each battle, each conquests he participated, and I will talk about this a bit later. I want to say that both of these women have daughters, and he is trying to kiss them, trying to make get closer. Yes, and this was again a little bit alike to the previous story, where you remember the people who was in love with the daughter of his teacher. So we found out. Okay, we find out that there was a conquest in Aquidal, where Don Anastasio had a fight.
Yes, and then we see that his father had a fight with what is his name?
His name is Faustino Higueras.
Yes, Faustino Higueras. So they had a fight. They were, they kind of, how do you say that? Made a
Quarrel.
They had a quarrel and
Graves.
yeah, they were making for themselves graves, and they were knifing each other. So whoever goes to the grave first, so he dies. But interestingly, no one dies.
Interestingly, the grave was empty.
Yes, interestingly, there is no one in the grave, not Higueras and not his father.
But everybody decided that his father won, and Faustino died.
Right. Yes. So then then as you said, there was an intimate scene with his daughter, and with her daughter, and he says to her, "Why can I not have you? I'm a man and you're the woman." And she says, "Because I don't want to." And he says, "Maybe I do want." And at that moment, her mother arrives, and she says, "No, you cannot do it." And she doesn't say that, "Okay, I'm not your mother." She doesn't say that. And he again asks, "So because she's my sister?" And she says, "No, she's not your sister. Your mother is that woman that you went to previously. Anacleta is your mother."
You're right. She said to find his blood ties in another home. Also, at the moment when he was trying to approach these girls, both of the mothers said, like, "You are bastard. Like you are just like your father." They were telling bad things about him and confirming the things that his father told him before his death.
Yes, and then there is an interesting line which says, "All the Indians of Quadral formed a circle around the empty grave and around the two young men, gasping and blood-stained, and they all were silent and motionless so as not to disturb the judgment of God, on whom the entire fate of them all depended, not just that of Faustino Higueras and Naco Zamora." And he says, "But I'm Naco Zamora. Your father, too, at that time was called Naco. And who won, Anacleta? How can you ask me that, boy, Zamora? No one can judge the way of the Lord." And I thought probably this is the father itself. Because interestingly, when the story ends, it ends with the lines like, "What gave you the right, Naco Zamora, to lay your hands on my sister?" And this is his father's enemy.
Natural.
Yes.
Faustino.
Yes, it must be him. He says, and the blade gleams in his right hand. His poncho is wrapped around his left forearm, and one end of it trails to the ground. A sound comes from the mouths of the Indians, which is not a murmur, but rather a truncated sigh. "Who are you?" "I am Faustino Higueras. Defend yourself." "I stand beyond the grave. I wrap my poncho around my left arm. I grasp my knife." So again, we don't find anything. We came back to the beginning. Like, the son came back to be his father again. So the story again circulated and came back to its initial point. So I think our expectations, we didn't have any expectations, and they were approved. They were accepted here. Totally approved.
Yes. So that's how the story ends, and I didn't feel like this was interrupted. I'm getting used to these unexpected endings, and that was actually already satisfying for me.
Yes, but the ending of this story is the most interesting because we are not just caught in the middle of nowhere. We came back to the initial, and maybe our book will end in the same way. Maybe we will come back to Ludmila and Reader in the book room.
Maybe.
Okay, so